everything is lighting up. There's fire everywhere. I was at a position where I felt like I couldn't move. I was almost either stuck between the rafters or stuck what felt like a closet. And I was trying to move. I couldn't move. Got hot. I was burning. And at that point, I thought, I'm going to die. This is it. I said to myself that I'm not gonna die like this, and so I started fighting for my life. I started digging, clawing, scratching, you name it. My hands were burning because I'm trying to pull all this materials, burned wood, whatever, so I could find my way out. They looked through that front door and the whole room was lit up on fire. That those guys were getting ready to come in to find me. And that's the brotherhood. When we talk about the sacrifices that these guys and men and women make. I got in the back of that ambulance and I knew I was hurt. I didn't know how bad it was. Lieutenant Merle asked me, he said, where are you hurting? Where are you hurting? I said, I'm hurting all over. I don't remember much about the ambulance ride. I knew that as long as I kept breathing, that I was alive.
You're listening to the ATO Bridging the Divide podcast, brought to you by the Assist the Officer Foundation.
Since 1999, the ATO has given assistance to the first responder community, and now we want to give them a platform to hear their incredible stories.
We also want to hear the stories of the many people that support us.
Our community is small, but it is strong.
We have differences. We don't always agree, and we all make mistakes.
But together we can grow, we can heal.
And we can learn from those mistakes.
And together we can bridge the divide.
There was an emblem that had its beginnings during the Crusades and was the symbol of the knights of that period. The knights were designing a shield that wouldn't be too cumbersome while riding horses in a battle. The emblem was adopted and put in early use by the Knights of Malta. The Knights of Malta became a charitable, non-military organization during the 11th and 12th centuries, providing aid to the sick and the poor and helped setting up numerous hospitals. They would later take up arms and join the Knights of the Crusades in an effort to win back the Holy Land. This new breed of knight was known as a flamboyant lot. They dressed in regal fashion to show their colors in a uniform manner. Large crimson colored capes were worn over the suits of armor. Not only were the capes symbolic, but they also helped provide a defense against one of the newest weapons of war, fire. As invading forces attacked a castle, the defenders would throw containers of flammable liquid onto the armies below. Once the armies were soaked, a torch would be hurled at the attackers, igniting their fuel-soaked clothing. With their fellow troops engulfed in fire, the Knights of Malta would approach on horseback, rip off their red capes, and use them to extinguish the flames on their burning fellow fighters. As a reward for their bravery, the cross worn by those knights was decorated and inscribed by their admirers. It became to be known as one of the most honorable badges of acclaim that could adorn a uniform. Today, people may travel by this unique symbol every day and not know its history or its legend. The legend of the Maltese Cross. Fire departments all across the United States use the Maltese Cross as an identifier and as a symbol of their dedication to the cause and service. It is synonymous with fire departments and is displayed on most fire department patches, apparel, and equipment. Firefighters who wear the cross are willing to lay down their lives for you, just as the Crusaders sacrificed their lives for their fellow man so many years ago. The Maltese Cross is a firefighter's badge of honor, signifying that they work in courage and they are a ladder rung away from death. Today's guest knows the risk of wearing this all too well. He has been associated with the Maltese Cross since 2008. He's experienced the brotherhood, the thrill and reward of serving, but also has experienced tragedy and personal pain. It is our honor to finally sit down with the Dallas Fire Association President, Lieutenant Jeff Patterson. Lieutenant Patterson, thanks for coming on.
All right. Thank you for having me.
Before we get rolling into your story, I want to get into special guest co-host. You heard him way back in episode 24.
24, yeah.
Yeah.
Just a while back.
The great DFR, nearly 4 decades of serving this city, David Lindsay. Say hello.
Hey, how much do I owe you for that intro, man? That was great.
Oh, shit, that's, yeah. I'll take a foot-long coney from Sonic, and then we'll call it even.
Okay, hey, that's a deal, man. You got it. Glad to be here. This is going to be fun.
It'll be a lot of fun. Kent Wolverton's here on the mic.
Yeah, I'm not bringing you a foot-long coney.
Just not the coney. All right.
Uh-oh.
Yeah, Jeff's sweating. He's like, oh, shit. Yeah. No, it's an honor to sit with you, and congratulations also on becoming the Dallas Fire Association new president. That's a heavy crown.
Yeah, no, yeah, I appreciate it. Check back with me in a few months, and we'll see. So far, so good.
Yeah, well, you took over this fire association as Jaime Castro took over the police association from Mike Mata, and that's just that you're going to have to deal with things. I wouldn't have any idea how to handle, and some of the things you put out fires literally that we never know about.
Yeah, no, absolutely, and it's been great. Jaime and I have developed a real good relationship, both kind of stepping into roles that were, the previous leaders had been in for a long time. So, it was good. Change was good. We're kind of learning kind of as we go. But we have a lot of people who've been there before us that have done that we're relying on and leaning on. I know I am especially when it comes to things. There's going to be some hiccups along the way, but it's not about one person. It's about the group. It's about the team.
Well, it's like building. I mean, in a lot of ways, like building a presidential cabinet. You get strong people around you to advise you, because
absolutely.
There's a lot of you don't need all that burden.
There's a lot of people smarter than me that if they want to be involved. We love to have them, and we're seeing more and more folks kind of get back involved for whatever reason. That their reason is they're getting back involved, and so it's been good. We're looking forward. We're moving forward, obviously, with new just new blood.
Pension talk kind of brings people up. We band together.
No, absolutely. Yeah, we don't want to jump into that too quick.
No, we're not going to get into that right now. Yeah,
that's a conversation for another day.
Yes, that's your part too. It's all about that.
No, that's something we all are. We actually, believe it or not, between all the police associations and the fire associations, that's something that we all are in agreement on. It needs to be fixed. It's going to be fixed. The biggest thing right now is trying to get a COLA. But that's for another podcast.
Okay. Well, there'll be a lot of people tuning in on that, or punching the steering wheel right now that we're not going to go deeper into that.
Yeah, but hopefully it'll get resolved. It's but we can dig into that more another time.
I got hope. Speaking of surrounding yourself with good and intelligent people, that's why when it comes to this show, I have Kent here, I have Danny involved, and Misty, and now we have David Lindsay. He can actually ask intelligent questions about fighting fires and about how the department works, and that I'm just a dumb cop. But
it's important. I talk about that all the time with our association, especially. We have got a lot of members who've been on a long time, and they still want to be involved. And we need to use them as a resource, pick their brains why they still want to be involved. If they get to the point where they don't want to be involved and we haven't done that, then, shame on us. That's on us. That's our fault. We have one member who's been dues paying member since 1965, 66.
Yeah.
He's still involved, 80-something years old, and man, he's seen it all. So those are the guys that I lean on, especially from an association standpoint.
Yeah, when you got decades of experience and insight, you gotta
Absolutely.
You got to take advantage of that.
Absolutely.
Honestly.
If you don't, then you miss an opportunity.
Yep.
Joe, I think Jeff's got a good perspective. I want to get this in here before I forgot about it. That's what happens to you when you get retired. But and I know we'll get into his incident a little bit later. But one of the things that he always talks to us about at the association level and about cooperation, with the police association and everything, is how he was found that day. You want to share that, Jeff, when you talk about reaching out for somebody to?
Oh yeah, I mean we can touch on it initially here. We can talk more about it later. It was a situation where, I was in there, fighting for my life, trying to get out, and it didn't matter to me if you were black, white, Hispanic, Asian, gay, straight. I was just looking for a glove, someone to reach out and pull me out of that fire, that's kind of. That says a lot there. We all have to work together. We don't always have to agree on stuff, and maybe our beliefs are different. But at the end of the day, whether you're in a police uniform or a fire uniform or fire gear, we're looking out for our brothers and sisters, and we're trying to help each other out. At the end of the day, we've got to make sure that everyone goes home safely, and sometimes that doesn't happen.
Sadly, let's get into the story, and we'll pull back the curtain on you and expose everything. All right, tell us about home life. Growing up, where'd you grow up?
I grew up in Plano, obviously a little north of here. I have a brother who's about 4.5 years younger than me. Just normal, middle class upbringing. My mom was a teacher. Dad was in insurance. My mom taught at Plano ISD for almost 30 years. And so she has a servant's heart, and she, it's something that, that's a thankless job. They do the Lord's work, and they should be paid more. But like I said, that's another conversation for another time.
I think everybody can agree that teachers. I mean, I see the poor teachers dealing with the stuff there in my daughter's school, and and there's no, when you go home at the end of the day, the grading papers, the going and coming up with new ideas. That's usually done on their time at home.
It's ridiculous. I saw a video this morning. Tina, my wife, showed me, was a student slapping a teacher twice.
You would think after COVID all that would change, with parents
ridiculous.
having to put up with their kids for 2 years, but it's only gotten worse.
When I was at Plano, I played sports all my life pretty much, and that was something that that's what I enjoyed doing. Playing football at Plano in the early 90s. I mean, we got licks, paddled up to my senior year in high school. Every Wednesday we would take a progress report around, and if you got an unsatisfactory or a U for grades or behavior, we'd hand them into the coach, and they would just line us up and just whap whap. Unfortunately, you can't do that anymore, and I think that says something about our kids today.
Well, it says something about society too. Yeah. I mean, and people focusing on really dumb shit. Speaking of Plano, though, man, what years did you play there?
I graduated in 92. So
man.
90, 91. We had some good teams and played with some great.
Plano, for the listeners that maybe live out of state, Plano is about 30 minutes, an hour depending on traffic, north of Dallas. And at the time, it was, it's nice, but there was, back in the day, it was looked at as the very influential part of the Metroplex.
Yeah, no,
people lived up there.
There was a divide. Typically, it was west and east, and it was funny. At my graduation, the speaker said, take a look to your left and take a look to your right. He said, take a look to your left. You probably will never see this person again. And he said, take a look to your right. You've probably never seen this person before. I mean, it was that big of a high school.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
Sounds like working on a
college
Dallas,
campus.
Dallas Fire
it was like
DPD?
a little mini college campus. But I was very involved in sports. Just the sacrifice that it takes. As part of a team. Being bigger than just something bigger than yourself. And I tell that to the recruits nowadays. I was like, be a part of something bigger than yourself. So playing football, I actually played in college for Harding University. Shout out to Harding in Searcy, Arkansas. Just won the Division II National Championship this year up in McKinney. And a couple of my buddies that I played with my buddy Paul Simmons is the head coach up there. Church of Christ school, so pretty strict, but a great atmosphere. I was fortunate to get a college scholarship for football, played in up there for 4 years.
What kind of resiliency did that build in you, though, growing up in a sports world and the hard work, and how did that affect you to who you are now?
Well, when you're out there, and I think Jocko Willink, said, I don't know if he was the original coin the phrase "embrace the suck." You always have, everybody's out there doing it. You're part of a team. Certain times it sucks. It's hot. You're miserable, but you're miserable together. And you're kind of you're fighting through those times when things aren't going well. And obviously I think that builds your resiliency, whether it's on the fire grounds, on a police situation, or on a team sport. Those type of experiences, I think, help solidify your your resiliency,
your fortitude. And that's life. Mm-hmm. That's life. Because it ain't always going to be easy. Honestly, rarely is it easy. No,
absolutely. And the thing that I struggled with. So when I graduated college, I was out in the quote unquote real world for about 10 years, doing various types of sales. I've got the gift of gab from my dad. I think that's what my mom always said. So I don't have a problem talking to people. I don't have a problem. I felt like sales was a natural thing for me. And so I was out there. I was trying to find something to replace or to substitute that team, that camaraderie, that brotherhood, if you will. And so 10 years trying to figure out what I wanted to do. My dad got sick. He had cancer, multiple myeloma, and went in remission about 5 years, and then he got sick towards the end of 2007. He was in Medical City, and they did all they could to save him, but he passed away January 10th of 2008. And so after that was kind of the event that made me decide kind of do an evaluation of, what I was doing, where I've been, and where I want to go. And so I was looking for something a little more, just more fulfilling, some way to kind of give me something to help people. And so at the time, when I was in high school, I thought about law enforcement. I kind of was thinking that route, and I kind of, that went away, and I got to the point after college, I was trying to find out my way. 10 years in, after my dad passed away, when doing that self-evaluation, I saw an ad in the paper, time for the Dallas Fire Department, and I thought, this may be something I want to do. And so as I began the process in January of 2008 that year, after my dad passed away, my son who's 15 now, he was born in July of 2008. And then I got accepted in and started the academy in October of 2008. So I have a little over 15, it'll be 16 years in October. But that's what kind of, that was the event that made me kind of decide, hey, this is something that I want to do. It was like they always say, it's a calling, but it really was. I was looking for something to replace that brotherhood of a football team or a team, where you sacrifice being a bigger thing than yourself, being a part of a group, and that's what led me to the fire department.
In your father's passing, it just set you on it opened a door for you that you knew you needed to do something. Yeah, you wanted to do something bigger.
Yeah, anyone who's been through an illness, whether it's cancer or whatever, where it's been multiple years, and you've seen the folks who have helped out, whether it's the nurses, the doctors. You've kind of seen that aspect of it. That's kind of what it was. I had the folks helping my dad, whether it was with on dialysis because his kidneys failed, chemotherapy, you name it. It was just that was the event that made me decide, hey, I needed to do an evaluation. Where have I been? Where am I at now? And where I want to go. And that's what led me to the fire department. I was fortunate to get accepted. I was 34 at the time. There was 3 of us in my class. I was the oldest one, Usually these guys are coming on 22, 23, 24. I was late to the party, but I got there.
Dallas is the only fire department you applied for?
Originally, just because I grew up in Plano, I thought, well, I'll go to Plano. But, they required, I believe it was fire cert and EMT, or at least EMT, or I can't remember exactly. I didn't have the prerequisites to get hired. I didn't have the certification. So at the time, people were like, well, just go to Dallas. They'll pay for your certs. And, so I signed up, and I was fortunate. I got hired. And so that was the start of it.
34 years old.
34 at the time.
David, 18.
19.
19 years old. So there's a
contrasting stories here.
Very contrasting stories.
Hey, can you get into what the actual standards in hiring? I don't want to pitch everything for DFR right here, right? We still need people on our side, but you have the opportunity, right? So discuss what it takes to actually become a firefighter in Dallas right now.
Well, the joke is, the guys who can't get in the fire academy go to the police academy. I mean, that's something we all have heard multiple times.
I'm legitimately that case. Yeah. I applied to a couple major cities, and it didn't work out.
So there is some truth to it. No, that's something we joke about. But, at the time, playing football, being physical, being active, I thought, well, this would be something that obviously I liked that aspect of it. One of the things I liked was that you never knew what was going to happen that day. If you're in a sales or a business job, you go in, like the movie Office Space, with the TPS reports. I got to the point it was just mind numbing. You'd have a great month, and they're like, all right, well, that's great, congrats. What do you got for us for this month? And I just got tired of that grind, and so for me, it was that physical aspect. But, obviously you got to be in shape. I mean, I'm sorry, backing up, the thing that I like, you come into the station that day, you have no idea what's going on. You could be sitting there having breakfast. Next thing you know, you're thrown into a house fire, to a chaotic scene or a motor vehicle accident or a gunshot, you name it. And where I was at Station 44, which is in Fair Park there. At the time, we were off Frank Street and Lego, the old 44s.
I parked there many times to go do surveillance on dope houses in the area. You could throw a rock from that station randomly and hit a dope house.
Yeah, no, every once in a while, y'all would come by and say, hey, we're going to be running a sting over here behind the church. We're going to be,
come save us when we freaking hear shots fired.
Yeah. But I was down there at 44s, and the thing I loved about that area, the folks, every time we would run into somebody who'd, an older man or woman or whatever, and they had been living there for 40, 50 years, that always blew my mind. Like, how have they made it this far down here? No fault of their own, but it was just, it's hard life down there for those folks. And, I'm kind of getting sidetracked, but, you think about, oh, I've got to get a new flat screen TV, or I need this or that. And then you see that some of these folks have nothing. They're sleeping on the floor, sleeping on a mattress, and it really humbles you and makes you appreciate what you have.
For sure.
They got like 10 people living in a 1,000 square foot home.
Yeah, and it's like I said, it makes you appreciative for what you have, and realize that there's a lot of folks that are not as fortunate as us. The fact that when we run into somebody, and I always love visiting with the older folks, and we ran into a lady one time. She was dipping snuff, like the old school powder stuff. And she's like, almost 80 years old. And I had never seen that snuff like that, and I was just visiting with her, and she's like, yeah, I grew up over here on Dunbar. I'm living off of what was Hatcher at the time. And it was always fun for me, to visit with those folks, because that they talk about resiliency. They had made it. They had made it that far.
Well, in that environment, you either end up in jail or you're dead, or you make it through. And those people that made it through, you really are kind of just astounded by, wow, you've seen some things. I guarantee it.
Yeah, absolutely. And a lot of those grandparents are raising their grandkids. Yeah, not just their kids, but their grandkids.
And hearing the stories about late 80s, early 90s down there with the Jamaican gangs. Mm-hmm. I mean, there was a lot of history there. So those are the type of things, that I appreciated about the job, but no 2 days were the same. We would, that was one of the things that drew me to fire service.
And that's what you enjoyed most, is the unexpected.
Yeah.
Every day was, you did not know what you were getting involved with, but you also were part of a family.
Yeah.
At that station.
And I talk about that when I talk to the recruits at the academy about the brotherhood. It's a legit thing. It's a powerful thing. We talk to these recruits about, hey, when you're out there with your Dallas Fire T-shirt on, your station shirt, then carry yourself accordingly. Because if you act like a knucklehead, then it reflects poorly on all of us.
No, that is very true. And if you do something that, and the only time anybody hears about stuff we do is it's a negative.
In the news.
Yeah, it's a negative usually, and it does make us cringe, even if it happens many states away.
Yeah,
this profession, our profession, your profession, we feel those aftershocks.
Yeah, no,
because of that.
Absolutely, it's very. I think it's similar on the police and the fire side. When those stories happen, they're front center on the news. And it's unfortunate, but it does happen.
Yeah. So working out there, you kind of, I'm getting from your story that you really enjoy the connection with the people in the community, and every day being a different day. Is there anything that surprised you when you started off? Like, wow, I had no idea this profession was like this.
The EMS side of it was, we train as EMTs and then paramedics, and some of the calls, you expect it to be legit calls, whether it's a gunshot, but it would get frustrating sometimes because, some of the calls you would go on the ambulance. So these are not emergency calls, and you're being pulled to a call that's, stub toe, and then if someone else comes in with a legit, what we consider a legit medical issue, a heart attack or something, then our resources are being spread thin. And that's a much bigger conversation above our pay grade. But the abuse of the system, especially on the EMS side, that would be frustrating. So surprising, yes, but also frustrating.
We deal with that too, as far as the abuse of 911. I mean, just or just for perceived criminal actions,
or that my kid doesn't want to go to school today.
Oh yeah, or basically wanted us to come over to be the bad, literally the bad cop, to be the parents for the child that's acting like an ass.
I had a situation. I was standing the watch there, and I get a knock on the door at like 10 p.m. and I said, "What is going on?" So I look out, and it's a lady and like a little kid. I say little kid, maybe 10 or 12-year-old kid, and I'm like, "Yeah, can I help you?" And she said, the kid wasn't listening to her mother, and so. I don't know if she was bringing her up there for us to maybe put the fear of God in the kid or what. But I basically told the kid, I was like, listen, your mother cares about you. There's a lot of kids here that may not have a parent that gives a shit about them. And so she does care about you. And through no fault of your own, you're already you're in a tough situation already. But having a parent or a father or whatever it is, an adult that cares about you and wants the best for you, that's not something that you see around here all the time. And so I just try to, kind of at least give her some guidance, or, what she did with it. I don't know. I was able to get them back out and go back to sleep, before the bells went off. But just little things like that, just little nuggets where you're trying to maybe help someone, appreciate kind of their situation. And, yes, it's tough for them, but hey, you got somebody who's an advocate for you and wants the best for you. So, not everybody has that down there, especially.
You got to have a lot of compassion doing any first responder job, and lead with empathy.
Yeah, and it's tough. I mean, as you guys know, you get worn down. You get that's why we have off days where we can take days off and kind of reset physically, emotionally, mentally, and it's important. I think that staffing. Obviously, we can talk about that with y'all being short staffed and fire. Having a little more, better staffing right now, just because of the situation. It's important that we have those days off where we can decompress in both aspects.
What is y'all staffing? How many does DFR have?
We're like 2,200 uniformed. I think we've got about 17 or 1,800 in the field
in operations. I mean, I don't have the number off the top of my head. I think we have 430 some per day. Not exactly, but per shift.
Okay.
So and we do a 24/48. We hire back, which is overtime. You guys usually just ride short if someone calls in sick, so we replace that body because we have a men staffing. But if you work 24 hours and then you get mandatory to work that second 24, I mean if you're on an ambulance and you're getting your ass kicked, that can be mentally straining. And so we've done a better job, I think, with our peer support, mental health awareness. Casey Ellsworth, who you've had on, has done a great job of helping build that team. And so we're doing a better job with taking care of our members, police and fire, I believe. ATO's been a great friend of ours. They've offered their psychologists, their therapists. I mean, we have a good partnership with them, and they typically, they haven't turned any firemen away. They've been great to help and work with.
And I'm glad you brought that up because you hear the organization's name, Assist the Officer Foundations. A lot of people just think it's just for police, and they know it's a Dallas-based entity. Well, they assume that it's just for Dallas officers. No, we also help Dallas Fire and Rescue, and I mean, hell, I see the financials. There's like over 30% of the counseling bill goes to firefighters. Yeah. So, and I get firefighters coming up to me at the gym and say, "Hey, I went and saw Dottie." Man, I was like, "Oh shit, oh great." Yeah, I didn't, and that's good to hear from people because I don't have the connection, obviously, that you have. Doing this show has allowed me a lot more connectivity with the fire world, having Casey on, having David on, and having Chief Bill, and now I'm having you on. And I'm going to have, others down the road. Even like having David Crump from McKinney Fire, him and his wife, Barbara, who's also one of our ATO counselors, having them on, it is so cool to sit with firefighters and talk about that brotherhood because we know ours. Y'all's is similar, but that it is different.
Well, we, just backing up real quick on the ATO, when I got hurt, they reached out to me. Fred Frazier was the president then, and they reached out and gave us some support. So that was huge. But back to what you were saying about that, yeah, it's we're so busy. There's no. You may have a PDCPR, and we may be able to get our, peer support and our, our other teams involved in that. But it's usually at the officer's discretion if he feels like, hey, we need someone to come talk to us, and then, Dave and those guys will come over. But there's no time really to decompress because you go on to the next call, and so you have to find a way to separate yourself. If it's someone who's 80, 90 years old, it's easier to kind of separate from that. When you're dealing with kids or someone younger, that makes it a little more challenging. I remember my first CPR, PD CPR, and it was a 4-year-old. He had choked on a corn dog or chicken nugget or something. It was a little elementary school right here off East Grand. And at the time, my son was the same age. I mean, and that's the kind of stuff we did all we could for that kid, and he didn't make it. And my lieutenant at the time, Lieutenant Merle, who's since retired, he called the CISM team to come to the station. I wasn't even on the ambulance. I was on the engine. We were running, so it was Engine 44 running with Rescue 8, and we did all we could for that kid, and that bothered me. We were able to talk about it. The CISM team, it was important. That's the critical incident stress management group we have.
I was about to ask.
Yeah, and so they come to the station. You kind of do a debriefing, and then you follow up a couple days later, next shift typically. But those things are that part of our department. Those guys, are doing great work. Because it's important that you have somebody to talk to. Now, if I needed somebody else outside of that, we have the peer support team. We have our Casey and his group, and then also have access to the counselors with ATO. But it's important. We're in the past where they would just say, hey, suck it up. Just to suck it up. You got to move on. We're doing better now with taking care of our members from a mental health standpoint.
Take care of so many others. Take care of, you got to take care of yourself.
Exactly. You forget that, you have to take care of yourself as well.
And you guys have a unique perspective on things too, where you work with the same people routinely, right? Like
Yeah.
you're on a certain shift and you're in the same station with those guys. So you have those relationships already in place, and you have people that you talk to. You sit down together and you eat together.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that's one of the cooler aspects of being a firefighter is that you guys are basically a family.
Yeah.
You know, you can't help it because you're living in the same roof. It's just like having brothers that you really don't like, and sometimes you do.
Yeah.
But that method of being able to discuss and debrief yourselves, I'm sure it's almost natural because you're just stuck in the same place with each other for so long that you have to actually talk to people.
Yeah.
With the police department, you know, we're on a rotating schedule. Everybody's on different days off. You might see a guy a couple days a week. You might not.
Yeah.
We don't have as much of the cohesion with the station because we're not in the station. You know, they've got us in squad cars. So
Yeah.
if you're lucky enough to have a partner that has the same days off with you, that's great for police. But the fire department, I really envy the fact that you guys get to spend as much time together and build those bonds and have somebody in place already.
No, it's a double-edged sword.
For sure.
Depending on the situation. But if you have a good crew that, you obviously are trusting with your life, it possibly, that makes a huge difference. You're living together, you don't always agree. Some of the new stations, it used to be the older stations were so much smaller, more intimate, more involvement with each other. Now these newer stations, everyone spreads out. It's just not like it was.
Right.
But when that bell hits, you all jump on that apparatus and you're ready to go to work.
How do y'all get selected? Go to these stations. I mean, when you get out of the academy, how does that process look? And how does some people do the transfers from? Like, hey, I want to go work to Oak Cliff, and then someone will work North Dallas. How does that look?
I think it's like dodgeball. They all line up the new guys, and they're like, I want him on my team.
When you come out of the academy, you get, like they used to tell you in preschool, you get what you get, and you don't throw a fit. You have to establish yourself. It takes time. If you get to a point where you have a little bit of seniority and you may see a hole open that most likely if it's a good hole, you're not going to have the time on to bid for it. The way our you put a bid in for it, if you have you're the most tenured, you'll get it.
So you have a bid process.
Yeah, we have a bid process.
And a lot of guys drift to stations to guys that they know. And I mean, it's funny now because like I spent the majority of my career, 27 of those 38 years, at one fire station, and there was you
knew the geography kind of well.
I was about to learn the district. That was
drive around blindfolded.
Yeah. That doesn't happen anymore.
No, it doesn't. There's a lot of guys.
My driver, Kelly Wagner, who was the Engine 44 driver, he was there I think almost 30 years.
Yeah, Kelly and I went through rookie school.
Yeah, so the guys staying at one station for that long, that's the anomaly now. That doesn't happen as much.
Well, that's the same with the police though. We have the bid process, and you used to have decades, officers spending decades at Southeast or other divisions in Northwest. Lance Crawford and his crew at Northwest were there the entire time. You don't have that anymore with the bid because they chase days off. And
the way our bid process works now, you have to, if you bid for a spot, you have to stay there 6 months. It used to be you could bid on the next one, so you stay there 6 months. If you don't like it, then you go on. But for the most part, like David said, they go to their either someone they're in the academy with or they're someone they feel comfortable with, and then that's where they usually stay unless they promote. But 6 months, based on our current rules and regs, if you leave, put a bid in to go somewhere, you have to stay there before you can leave.
And there's a lot of guys there's a lot of stuff that goes on behind the scenes. There is a formal bid process through the department, but he's going to grin when I say this. There's a lot of phone calls that goes on. Hey man, tell me about this guy. Well, what kind of paramedic is he? A good firefighter? And stuff.
There's the policy way, and then there's the kind of some of the other ways that it happens. You call over there, and they say, "No, we already got somebody in mind."
That's calling getting backlined.
Yeah, you try to put a letter in, and they say, "You need to pull your letter. We got so and so already lined up for it."
So
we're not supposed to be able to do that, but it does happen.
It's what we call the way it is, right?
Yeah, it's called the way it is.
Yeah.
With our bid process, it's everybody in patrol gets to bid for either you choose your station, your days, and usually your sector.
Yeah.
So and what shift you want to work.
And you see what sergeant. They usually have the sergeants in place before you bid, so you see you don't want to work for asshole sergeant. You don't have to.
But with yours, it sounds like it's almost like you're applying for the position when you put a bid in for it. You're saying, hey, I'd like to go over there, and it's almost like a transfer rather than a total reassignment.
Typically, I would say, I don't know, customarily you would call that officer and say, hey, I'd like to come over there.
There's a courtesy. Yeah,
courtesy.
Well, and right now, if you went and looked at, I would say the majority, I mean, the one that just comes to my mind is 24s on the C shift right now with True Love and Russ and those guys down there. There's not a lot of movement. The paramedics
Where's that station at?
Hatcher.
Okay.
24s down on
LC
Hatcher.
Fay now it's
LC
called.
Fay.
Yeah, it's
Hatcher just about
Crozier.
175.
It's Crozier and Hatcher.
Yeah. Those guys get in those stations like that, and they work. And I mean, the thing about it is they'll have parties that go to each other's family events together, and those guys they'll become a tight knit group. And then you'll see stations where it's a constant rotation of guys coming in and out. I mean, like you take 18s right now. They got 2 ambulances, an engine, a truck. They're one of the busiest fire stations in the nation right now. They're getting stomped every shift. But you go down there and look at those guys. There's not a lot of turnover. Those guys all love working. I mean, all 3 shifts right now, and they love working with each other. So it's they've all kind of gotten together and got a good cohesion going.
Let's get our ass kicked together.
Yeah. Well, I mean, there's value in understanding, being familiar with the location, or just what you're getting.
No, I guarantee you these drivers, back in the day, they knew every street, every turn, the fastest way to get there. We probably still have that some, but as these younger, drivers come on, they're looking at the map, or there's no Mapscos anymore. Looking on the computer, looking on their phone.
People always stole my Mapsco.
You just dated yourself, Jeff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Someone asked us for a Mapsco number. These young guys are like, "What did he say?" It's a Mapsco.
I got a bingo.
Yeah. They had a heart attack laughing after you said that. It was Mapsco.
I don't know if Mapsco company's still in business or not.
LT, I want to get into something that happened in May of 2014. Can you just kind of walk the listener through it? We're going to be posting some pictures that I believe you sent me that was from that night, and how that night and that event it changed everything.
Yeah, it was Saturday, May 3rd. My wife's birthday was on May 2nd. We had a nice night just kind of at the house there with the kids, a nice meal, and went to work that Saturday just like any other Saturday for us at the firehouse. We typically will do the yard, do the lawn, the grounds, kind of mow the grass and stuff. And so we had done that. My son, who at the time was 5, had a baseball game. I think he was doing, I don't know if it was T-ball or coach pitch, something along those lines. So I had taken 2 hours of AI, which is just for us, it's time off attendance incentive. If you don't call in sick, you earn this time, you can use it. So I had taken 2 hours of AI and went to his baseball game. He was playing over there off Northwest Highway and kind of Jupiter area. There's a little church over there, a little field. So we had gone over there, and I had gone over there, and went to his game. Got to see him play, and my wife was there. My daughter was about 2.5 at the time, and so went to the game. Then came back to the station, and had been a pretty uneventful day. Nothing real exciting to be done that day, other than just our normal runs. And so about 5:30 that night, we got a call for a structure fire. And structure fires for us are I think kind of like shootings are for y'all. It's like everybody wants to go, and that's the stuff we live for, we sign up for. And so this box had come in. It was over at Station 32's first up, wasn't in our first up, so we knew we were probably going to be second, maybe third engine in on it. And so we started en route. We were heading down Military, towards like Jim Miller area, and we could see the smoke. So we knew that we had, we're going to have a working fire. We're going to have something. We're going to be able to do something and get in there and do what we do. And so when we got on scene, it was just a 1-story white brick house, just like you would typically see, in the neighborhood. Not where I was at in Station 44, we had a lot of just, smaller wood frames. Usually by the time we got there, it was usually rocking and rolling pretty good with fire. This one was a little bit different than what we were used to in our first up. So one-story brick, kind of spread, not too big, but this one was on a corner, and so on the Delta side, which is on the right side, there was a huge fence that went all the way around to the alley, and then on the Bravo side, there was like kind of a brick step up, and then there was kind of a storage building and a fence. So you couldn't really access it. The house on either side. So, that was a challenge that, I'll talk about here in a second. But so as we pulled up, we had this house 5:30, 6 o'clock on a Saturday night. We weren't sure if it was occupied. I mean, it looked like a nice house, so we had a feeling it was probably occupied. Didn't know if people were out or not at that point. That time of day, we would, you can assume that somebody's out, but you can never be sure until you get in there and do a search. So we pulled up Station 53, Engine 53, and a couple of other units were already there. And I remember kind of looking at the house and seeing the fire. It looked like it was in the Charlie side, which is in the rear of the house. And so, we grabbed a second line, and I grabbed a pike pole, which is basically a hook that's used for pulling the ceiling down to check for fire extension up in the attic and things like that. So I did not have a line. I did not have a nozzle. Did not have any water on me. I just had that pike pole. And so we grabbed that second line. We went in, and tried to find where the first line was. And they determined that the fire was kind of back in the back left corner where the kitchen and the garage were. And so at that time, we were in there basically doing what we do. I was pulling ceiling, looking for extension, and I remember the conditions weren't really that bad at that time. It wasn't like, you see these shows on TV where, Chicago Fire, some of these things that are just not realistic. You can't see your hand in front of your face a lot of times on these things. So it's all touch and feel, sound, listening, using your senses. You can see the fire, obviously, but sometimes with the smoke conditions, you can't see your hand in front of your face. And so we got in there and we started. We had that second line. We were checking, pulling ceiling, checking for extension, and then about that time, they came on the radio, and I remember hearing the chief say, "Hey, we're going to pull everybody out. Let's pull everybody out." And I turned to my lieutenant and I said, hey, Lou, they want us out. And we were kind of in the back portion of the house, kind of where the patio and the kitchen and the garage all tie together. And so I said, hey, Lou, they want us out. They want us out. And so at that time, we started to the conditions were deteriorating. It was getting harder and harder to see. And as at that time when they said, hey, they want everybody out, I said, hey, Lou, they want us out. So we turned to go back to where I thought the front door was. And then about that time, come to find out after the fact, they had done an add-on in the back of this house. So the patio was covered add-on. And so what happened, basically the rafters of that add-on just hinged down and dropped in on us. At that point, we were seeing fire, but it wasn't that bad. Outside, it was a lot worse. And at that point, that's when they decided to pull us out. So I tried to. Next thing I know, everything is lighting up. There's fire everywhere. I was at a position where I felt like I couldn't move. I was almost either stuck between the rafters or stuck what felt like a closet. And I was trying to move. I couldn't move. I got hot. I was burning. And at that point, I thought, I'm going to die. This is it. And then I thought at that time, I was at my son's baseball game 4 hours ago watching him play. And you talk about fight or flight. I said to myself, I'm not gonna die like this. And so I started fighting for my life. I started digging, clawing, scratching, you name it. My hands were burning because I'm trying to pull all this materials, burned wood, whatever, so I can find my way out. I I remember banging around, finally got free of whatever I was stuck in, and what I thought was going towards the front door. And the way the house was set up, I must have veered to the right just a little bit, and I got stuck in the dining room, which was just when you went through the front door to your left, there was about a 7-foot opening, and that's where the dining room was. So I must have zigged when I should have zagged. I tell people that. But I got stuck in that dining room, and I'm bouncing around trying to figure out, where I thought the front door was. I'm running, crawling, you name it, just trying to get the heck out of there. The last thing I kind of remember was rolling over either a dining room table or something, and that's one of the hard things for us. We go into these people's houses that are maybe a hoarder. We have no idea what we're walking into. And a lot of times it's a very dangerous situation. So somehow the last thing I remember, was kind of falling forward. My hands were burning. You can't take your gloves off, but you want to because that's your initial thing. Oh, my hands are burning. I was burning. I was cooking, like a baked potato, it felt like. And the last thing I remember is kind of falling forward. And come to find out, the crew that was outside, everyone else had made it out. My lieutenant said he got all the way. The wind was blowing from the Charlie side to the Alpha side. So from the back of the house to the front, it was feeding that fire, blowing towards where we came in. And so Lieutenant Merle said he got all the way to almost to the street, crawling, where he felt like then he was able to stand up. It was that much smoke was blowing, and that fire was being smoke driven, and so wind driven. Excuse me. And then so anyhow, the guys from 53s just happened to be out front. Everyone else had got out. They had done a PAR, which is a accountability issue, personal accountability report, if you will. And they said Patterson's not out, Jeff's not out, and so at that point they were, guys were coming in. Some of the additional units, they put a second alarm on it at that time, and I talked to one of the guys from Truck 24, and he said that they looked through that front door and the whole room was lit up on fire. But those guys were getting ready to come in to find me, and that's the brotherhood. We talk about the sacrifices that these guys and men and women make. And so just so happened, David Barber, his nickname is Woody, he's since retired, but they said he doesn't hear very well, great fireman, hard worker. He just happened to glance over to his left, and just something caught his eye, and it was my glove hitting the glass of this dining room window and hit the glass and sliding down. And I'm 265 pounds, 6'2". I'm a big guy, probably 270 right now, my wife would say. But at the time, I was pretty good size. With all that gear, this window was 18 inches wide. And he just happened to glance over, and he saw my glove hit that glass, and he kind of saw it out of the corner of his eye, and then he broke that window out, start pulling me out. I remember them pulling on the straps of my SCBA, and I remember kicking, feeling like, all right, they're pulling me, I'm kicking, I'm kicking, digging, scratching, whatever. Just get me the heck out of here. I was hurting all over. I knew I was hurt. I didn't really know how bad it was. They pulled me out. They said that, our gear's rated to about 500. Anything after that, the conditions are not typically survivable for very long. They said that my gear was so hot to the touch that they couldn't touch it to take it off. They were having to, like you do when something's hot. They finally were able to get my gear off. And they said that the guys who I talked to who were there said that, they didn't think it was that bad until they got my gear off and they saw my arms were burned, my hands. I knew when I saw my hands burned and the skin, sloughing off, I thought, I knew I was hurt. I just had no idea how bad it was. What I knew was I was freaking thirsty. I was still on air, but I was breathing. The air was warming up, obviously, because of the atmosphere. And people who aren't firefighters, it's not oxygen that we're breathing. It's compressed air. Oxygen couldn't go in a fire. So just as a little thing there, there's a lot of folks that think that we have oxygen. It's not oxygen. It's just compressed air. So I was breathing hot air. My mouth was dry as a bone. I was thirsty, and I was like, just give me some freaking water. And they said, no, you can't have any water because I had some smoke inhalation. And basically, if you put that water in there and there's damage to your trachea, that thing just locks up, and then you can't breathe, and then you die. So they got me out of the house and got me in the ambulance. I remember being in the ambulance. I remember Lieutenant Merle, I gave him my wedding ring, and I said, make sure my wife gets this ring. And then they took me to Parkland. From the time we got on scene, when things went south, and when they got me en route to Parkland was 13 minutes. That's how quickly it happened. I was in the house anywhere from 2 to 3 minutes, but I was in there long enough to know, it was a bad situation. Those guys, were, like I said, they were about to come in for me, and I thank God that they didn't have to. And I thank God that Barber was there, because I think they would have found me eventually. I just don't know what kind of shape I would have been in.
Speaking of what kind of shape you were in, what kind of injuries? Could you describe those?
Yeah. When you become a firefighter, that's always a possibility that you may get a burn. You may, you lean up on some, you get your ears burned, your shoulder maybe, but, my situation was obviously much worse than that. I got in the back of that ambulance, and I knew I was hurt. I didn't know how bad it was. Lieutenant Merle asked me, he said, where are you hurting? Where are you hurting? I said, I'm hurting all over. I don't remember much about the ambulance ride. I knew that as long as I kept breathing, that I was alive. And so I was breathing almost to a point of hyperventilation. That's how they were trying to calm me down. And I joke about, they gave me some fentanyl for the pain, and I woke up 6 weeks later. But at the time, I don't remember. I kind of remember getting to Parkland, but I don't remember that much. I just know that Dr. Wolf, who was the burn surgeon, and those folks there at the emergency room, saved my life. They had a big part of saving my life. I was in a coma for 6 weeks, an induced coma to help me heal. A lot of weird dreams during that time. I, trying to distinguish, what was real and what was not, what was just the drugs. But I was in a coma for 6 weeks. I was burned 48%, predominantly on my arms, my hands, my shoulders, my back, and on my sides. A little bit on my calves, I think, when they pulled me out. I think there was a stack of hot bricks there, and, my bunker pants kind of rolled up a little. And so about 48%, predominantly third degree, which is, not the worst, but anything worse than that, it's catastrophic where, you don't survive. It was deep, deep, full thickness burns basically. And so I spent 6 weeks in a coma there. As they backed me off at about day 42-ish, I think they had a count on the wall there on the dry erase board. I remember, kind of coming around, and my wife likes to joke about I saw my wedding ring on her neck. She was wearing it on a chain, and she tells a story about that I asked her, "Do we get married?" And then she said, "Yes, yes, yes." And I start crying, and I was like, "Okay, good." It was just stuff like that you see some. You had, being out of it for 6 weeks, there was obviously a blank space in time, and so, I knew. I had no idea that it would have been 6 weeks. I just knew I was in the hospital, and I was in a weird state of mind from all the drugs that they had given me.
Once you started waking up, and you're seeing your wife, or seeing the whiteboard. How did that look like? Slowly coming out of that and getting a grasp on reality and the reality of what happened 6 weeks. I mean, how did you find out that you had been under for 6 weeks?
Well, I missed some events. Obviously, I missed my son's kindergarten graduation. I had no idea that it was that had been 6 weeks, and so when I started coming around, I'd obviously be filled in on some details. I was still critical. That first, really the first couple weeks, when you get burned, it's not the burns itself that kill you, it's the infections. And Tina, my wife, tells a story about Dr. Wolf. They had done these grafts, taking the skin off my legs, off my thighs to graft my back. And then he noticed that, there was something going on, that he thought that there was possibly an infection. And so he said, we need to take these grafts off. So these grafts were not on there very long, and they basically had to take them down and take them off. And so you're exposed again. And she asked Dr. Wolf, well, how do you know if it's an infection? How do you know? And he said, nonchalantly, well, they typically code. And that was an eye opener for her. Like, holy cow, this is serious. And so coming out of it, backing up, when I was in that coma, there was a lot of people involved that helped my family, my kids. The day that it happened was Kentucky Derby. Tina was at our neighbor's house across the street with the kids for a Kentucky Derby party. And months before, a couple of guys came by on the ambulance and were like kind of just wanted to take some pictures in the backyard on the kids' like swing set, just jacking around like firemen do. And my wife was like, absolutely not. And it kind of, freaked her out. Like, there's an ambulance here. And I had told her, I said, if something ever happens to me, it's not going to be two knuckleheads on the ambulance. It's going to be a Suburban, and it's going to be a chief in a white shirt. And sure enough, it happened. She said that they were at our neighbor's house, and Joel, our neighbor at the time, said, hey, Tina, I think Jeff's here. Saw the Suburban pull up out front, and she knew that I had told her that in the past. And she popped up and met the chief and his driver in the front yard, and they said, Jeff's been hurt. You need to come with us. And she said, is he alive? And they said, we don't know. All we know is he's been hurt. And she went and got her cell phone and her charger and was gone to the hospital with them. Left the kids with our neighbors, who were awesome. They kept the kids busy, and she went to the hospital. I was very critical, obviously. She didn't sleep for 3 days. The world's been turned upside down. Got a 5-year-old and a 2.5-year-old. It was a situation that no one should have to be in, and no one wants to be in. But we had a lot of support that rallied around us from our church, St. Thomas Aquinas in East Dallas. Friends took care of the kids. I couldn't see. I saw the kids twice in the time I was in the hospital because they couldn't come up to the burn ICU because they were too young. They were able to set up some times for us to kind of meet in areas there that were kind of under the radar, if you will. But we had a great support network with the church, with the kids' school, and with the neighbors there, and obviously with the department. They rallied around our family and helped support us at that time.
Who are some of the major players in your department that stepped up that some may have surprised you, and then some you knew were brothers and sisters?
Well, nothing, surprised me per se. I mean, that's what we do. We take care of each other, and we always said that. But Chief Bright, who was the chief at the time, he basically they put a watch together. They stood watch outside my room. They had a van. They were able to drive my wife, my family that was in town, that had come into town. My wife's family's all from New York, and so they had guys every day there, to either run her back and forth, to get whatever they needed. She was there every day. I was, like I said, coma for 6 weeks. I spent 3.5 months in the burn ICU, and then I spent another month at Zale Lipsy. I was in the hospital for 4.5 months. So it was a long time.
And you were the first firefighter in almost 2 decades that had this kind of catastrophic injuries and survived.
Yeah, no, it was. We're real good about stuff when they die. Unfortunately, we know what to do. We know the ways to go about it. But when you have someone who's been catastrophically injured, in the situation I was in, we hadn't been in that situation in a long time. So there was a lot of a lot of unknowns, whether it was the support from the department, I got letters from other firefighters all over the country, people reaching out, the ATO, other people wanting to support our family. They had fundraisers for me. A lot of people, they want to help. A lot of times they're not necessarily sure how to help. And so back to my time in the hospital, I'll tell the story where I'd never been in the hospital before this. I had never had a surgery other than, my tonsils out when I was a kid. And I remember the doctor coming in, hey, so I had already had the infection. Everything that they said could go wrong, I went through. I had a nasty pneumonia where they actually had to call in the infectious disease team in Parkland because they thought maybe it was a super bug, type thing that the drugs weren't going to work on. Thank goodness it did. And my wife tells a story where doctor, I remember which one it was, but he actually told her that I was the sickest person in that hospital at that time at Parkland. And so when you hear that definitely puts things in perspective.
And while you were out and you were in this state of coma, there's also something else that everybody else's lives were continuing.
Yeah.
Worrying about you, taking care of you. Can you talk about your wife's diagnosis while this was going on?
Yeah. So, everybody, not everybody, I should say, has an advocate or a partner that stands by your side when you can't advocate for yourself, when you're unconscious. And she was there every night because she knew that if she was there, that I was going to get good care. I mean, she's tough, New Yorker from Brooklyn. Been in Dallas since 2002. But she takes no shit. She doesn't care if you're a white shirt chief or the CEO of the hospital. She told a story about, the guys had dropped her off. This was at the old Parkland. Dropped her off in the back by the ER. Typically, we can just put the code in and go. The firefighter was parking the car, and so she was there, and she was telling a story about she was waving at the nurses, hey, I need to get in, and they were brushing her off like she was just some crazy person or someone, a regular patient wanting to get in. They were brushing her off, and she was like, no, I got to get, my husband's in the burn ICU. And they're like, oh, waving her off. And here comes that firefighter and puts the code in and opens that door. And those ladies, Tina walks in with the firefighter, and those ladies' eyes were like, oh, shit. And she was about to lost her shit on these two nurses. And then she had to get up to me because I was critical. And so she got up there. And so later, I don't know if it was the next day or what, like one of the executives with Parkland comes up and is like very apologetic to her and saying, I'm sorry about the misunderstanding that happened down there. And she was pissed because those nurses blew her off and they had no idea. And she was like, my husband's in there in a coma who's been critically burned. He's about to die. He's a firefighter. And you were, shunning me and waving me off. And those poor nurses didn't know. They just thought it was some, person trying to get in through the emergency entrance. But boy, that the hospital administration came back the next day was with their tail between their leg, apologizing for the whole, all that. So, I was unconscious in a coma. And what happened, Tina was there in the emergency room one night and she started having some real bad abdominal pain. And so they took her, Elaine Maddox, who was our chaplain, who was an angel, said, well, let's go down to the emergency room and get you checked out. And so they checked her out and they said, well, we think there may be something going on, but we're not 100% sure. You need to, she didn't want to leave me. So she was like, I need to get back up to, I believe it was the 6th floor, back to the burn unit, burn ICU. And they were like, no, we need to check you out. And so, they said, well, you need to follow up with your doctor. We think we may see something, but we're not, just a quick x-ray is not going to show it. And she was like, oh, okay. Got her kind of feeling better. And she, for her, it was, the old Parkland, you're on a gurney. She said, I'm looking at the foot of my gurney. Here's a prisoner in a striped shirt, handcuffed to the gurney. And she's like, where the heck am I? Never been in Parkland before. But anyhow, so she got back up to the room and was feeling better. But come to find out, she had colon cancer. And so she got diagnosed with colon cancer when I was in the hospital. They didn't tell me. David, could tell the story when he figured it out, but they couldn't tell me because they knew that I was, I would, being the man, being the husband, you want to try to take care of your family. I was in no position to take care of anybody else at that time besides myself. And she tells the story or the saying, there's not many times in your life when you're diagnosed with cancer, and that's not the worst thing you have going on. And so that's kind of the situation we were at that time. And David, he obviously works a lot with our cancer and with the fire department. And he said he saw the fanny pack with the chemo on there, and I don't know, he could probably tell that portion of it. He said he knew what was up.
Oh yeah, she was coming up into the to visit that day, and it was funny because I actually had a friend of my mom and dad's that had that exact same fanny pack. And when she walked in that day, I remember your mom was there, and she came in, and I said, Tina, and shout out Tina, my dear. She's taken care of me as well as she's taken care of Jeff too over the years. But I said, hey, are you okay? And she looked at me and she goes, yeah, I'm fine. How's Jeff? And I kind of gave her one of these head nods, and I said, step over here. And I said, are you okay? And she realized that I knew. And I remember she made me promise. She says, you cannot tell Jeff and you cannot tell his mom. Now, this is, I didn't know Tina's story back to the, World Trade Center and her being from Long Island and all this stuff and everything. But I found out she was a tough chick real quick. And so, but she was more concerned about Jeff. Yeah. And I was kind of like, okay. And I think that was probably the first time that I had given her my personal cell phone number. And I said, now you and I are going to have regular conversations, not just about Jeff. Because I think you were still in the coma at that time, maybe right at the end of it or right about the time you were coming out. So kind of an awkward situation for a guy that was there showing up just trying to help. But it
was, like I said, as the husband, as the man, you want to be able to take care of your family. But I was in no position. I mean, I wasn't as critical in that, but at that time. But it was still touch and go. But what I wanted to tell the story about the doctor came in and said, hey, we're gonna do another surgery. We're gonna take some grafts off your leg, and we're gonna put them on your back. And I remember I told the doctor, I said, I'm a little nervous, Doc. I said, I've never had a surgery before. And my wife leaned over and she said, Jeff, you've had 8.
You're making up for it. A lot of time of not having surgery.
I had 8 surgeries when I was unconscious that I don't remember a single one. I have had 30 surgeries now, various grafts. Not in a few years now because of COVID, but scar releases, lasers to help smooth some of the scarring. I have some restrictions still, just because of the tight scar tissue on my back. But that story, it still blows my mind that I don't remember first 8 surgeries, being unconscious and being in kind of in la la land.
So you mentioned the dreams that you had while you were in your coma, but
yeah, there was. I mean, at one point I was in Europe. I remember vividly traveling in Europe in a hotel. I remember telling Tina, I said, "Man, there's someone breaking into that car outside. I saw him. We need to call police." And she was like, "We're on the 6th floor, Jeff. There's no one outside that window that you can see from that perspective." And I was like, "Okay." And I remember saying to her, I said, "Well, come lay down on the bed next to me, like the hotel bed." And she said, "Well, where do you want me to lay?" And I was like, right here. And she said, "Well, I don't think there's enough room." And I kind of glanced over, and all it was monitors. And there was no room for her. And I thought,
this is not the Hilton.
This is not. Yeah, this is not the Holiday Inn Express or whatever hotel it is. It's and I always wanted to go to the bathroom. I was like, I need to go to the bathroom. Can you help me? I couldn't even walk at that time. I was that weak. They would bring me the urinal. But I always felt like I needed to go to the bathroom and get up and go, where's the bathroom in this room? There was no bathrooms in the burn ICU.
When did you find out about her diagnosis?
I really don't remember the exact time. I just knew that it was going on. I got out of the hospital in September. And so I think it was the 21st of September in 2014, and she had a surgery scheduled for the cancer, and craziest time that was during the Ebola crisis. And so she was scheduled for a surgery at Presbyterian Dallas, which was ground zero for Ebola. And it was you can't make this stuff up. And the nurse had already been also, was positive for Ebola, and she told her doctor, if there's one more person that comes down with Ebola, we're calling this off. And the doctor said, oh, no, you're fine. We're in a different area, blah, blah, blah. So I got out of the hospital, and like 2 weeks later, she had a cancer surgery to remove some of that cancer. And so we were in rough shape then, man. One of the guys got a picture of us. I was 265. I got out, I think I got down to 170. I was 190 when I got out, so just no strength at all. I remember when I was at Zale Lipsey, I took a fall with the nurse, just a slow fall. I couldn't even get myself up off the ground. They had to bring in a lift to pull me up. But so they took a picture. It was like she's walking down the thing with the IV pole, and I'm walking down just frail as can be, all burned up. And, man, we were in rough shape at that point. But once again, the support network that we had was huge. My mom and my stepdad, they live up in McKinney. My mom, friends, shuttling kids. I mean, it's stuff that, there was much more going on than I ever even knew about.
It's stuff they make movies about and write books about.
Yeah. I mean, it was
resiliency and strength, inner strength.
And it's funny. Every once in a while, we'll come back to something, and don't you remember that? And no, I don't remember that. And then, that's right. That was when you were in a coma.
I don't
remember that experience.
I don't know if Jeff remembers this or not. I was out of town the night he got burned. I was at a friend's wedding. And I got there on Sunday morning, and when I walk in, I'm on the honor guard, and and he talked about all these people, best of intentions and everything. Well, we get up there, and two of our honor guard guys are in their full dress honor guard uniform.
Yeah,
and I walk up, and luckily for me, I wasn't there when you came in, and when all that. So I looked at them and I go, guys, what are you doing? I said, you look like the Grim Reaper standing by the door. Well, some chief had said, hey, let's get the honor guard out. And so that was when he talked about guys were there at the hospital, there's driving the van. Yeah. We changed on that Sunday to, instead of, because you know how it is when an officer, whether it's police or fire dies, you've always got a guard by that door. Well, I looked up and I, this chief was standing there, and I go, what are we doing? Well, my honor guard guys, they got it immediately. They started taking their coats and their hat off, and this chief was kind of like, what are we doing wrong? And, it took him a minute, and then we were kind of like, you look like you got a sickle, in a hood.
We're not there yet. Right?
Yeah. Well, so they kind of had to adjust, and I didn't know if Jeff knew that story or not.
It's funny when you mentioned that. So backing up, that Saturday night was our annual awards banquet.
Yeah.
And so I was on shift, obviously. We have it once a year, and we give awards for, whatever, acts of valor, a handful of awards, and it's a good time to socialize with the other firemen. And I don't know if we were doing it at the Aviation Museum at Love Field.
Yeah.
So Tina shows up at the hospital, and then all of a sudden, all these guys are showing up. They had come from the banquet. They're in their Class A dress uniforms. And she is like, holy, you know what? Why are these guys all in their dress uniforms? Is he dead? Has he died? Is there something they're not telling me? And she had no idea that it was the awards banquet. So they were all coming in straight from that.
Why are they in Class A's and tuxedos?
Yeah, I don't know if at some point someone told her, no, it's the awards banquet. So it's a separate deal. But as a wife, and you're seeing all these guys show up in their dress uniform, that's probably not something good. But fortunately, it was for the banquet, not for me dying at that point.
Came close.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It was my wife. She said there's a saying she used, and I believe in it. God was watching out for me. It wasn't my time, but the saying is, "There's no atheist in a foxhole."
What did that recovery look like? I mean, like you get out in September, so how long did that?
Well,
that
recovery
look like?
starts in the hospital too.
Oh,
Yeah.
absolutely. I mean, so backing up, I mean, obviously, the wound care, the debriding, all that is the worst possible thing you can imagine in
Can
your
you
life.
describe that?
No, not really.
Okay.
I can describe it, but I can't do it. I can't do it. It's just pretty much the worst thing you can imagine. So I missed a lot of that initially, the first 6 weeks, thank God. But I got plenty of it, in that time I was in there. And that's basically, they have to clean it so that you don't get infections. When your back is burned and you're laying on your back, and they want you to lay on your side, but you can't lay on your side because your side's burned. You're frustrated. You're trying not to be an asshole, but you're hurting all over. I remember I had a little push button of Dilaudid, and I think I could hit that thing every 8 minutes. And as soon as that light turned green, my hands were burned, and so I really had a hard time pushing the button, and so no one else could push it. That was the rule. That was what they said, at least. Only I could push it. So the pads of my finger, everything was still hurt so much that one of the nurses took a tongue depressor, and she was able to rig it up on the button so that I could get enough pressure just to get that Dilaudid. So in the hospital, I remember I was so weak. I had just so much atrophy from being in that bed for so long. Just taking steps, all the stuff we take for granted. I remember the first time it was all about, the physical therapy. I managed. We gauged by the floor tiles. All right, we're going to try to get to that tile today. A couple steps here and there. Flashing back to playing football in college, always being a big, strong guy. And here I am. I could barely walk. I can't lift myself up off the ground. The mental side of that was huge. And so physical therapist, the occupational therapist, getting my hands, trying to get the dexterity and you have to move them or they will scar up and they will lock up. So they're like, motion is lotion, they would say. You got to keep moving. And so the physical therapist, the occupational therapist, all of those, the burn ICU nurses, I mean, nurses in general are awesome, but it takes a special nurse to be able to do the burn ICU for sure. And so, the doctors, the 3 burn surgeons at the time, the nurses, I mean, they absolutely saved my life. But as the therapy, it hurts. It hurts. The wound care hurts. But you got to keep moving. If you don't, it's gonna tighten up. Getting to Zale Lipsche, getting a little stronger. Remember, Tina tells the story, when you're in the burn ICU, you got your dedicated nurse right there. You press the button, they're there within a minute. You go to Zale, they're like, yeah, we try to be there within 10 minutes. And I'm like, 10 minutes ain't going to cut it. When it's something like either you need to use the restroom or something else, you need someone to help you right then. You don't need to wait 10 minutes. But it was different over there. But learning to walk again, building my strength, getting in and out, off the toilet, out of the tub, out of the shower, it's all those things that we take for granted. You basically have to learn to function again. And it's a long road. And even when I got out, I mean, I was going to rehab for, started off maybe 4 days a week, physical therapy, occupational therapy, and then, it weaned a little bit, but for a year, year plus. I mean, I was off work for about, I want to say 18 months, and then I came back to light duty. But yeah, it's a journey. It was a journey.
When was that? When did you return back to work?
So it would have been, I think it was about October of 16, I believe it was. So it was quite a long time. But I came back to light duty. I was on actually light duty for about a year. I think the whole ordeal, was about 2 years, when I got out. And on light duty, I was stationed out at the drill tower, our training facility, and they worked with me. I knew I wasn't going to be able to go back to the fire station per se, trying to figure out what my role would be at that point. I was still doing surgeries, still doing therapy for quite a while.
Well, just getting over the physical part and the mental toll it takes to go through what you went through, and then once you return back to work, wrestling with your new role with the fire department.
Mm-hmm.
What you knew was going to look different. So once you get back, are you on light duty now?
So when I went back, I was there's only there's a few places you can go. I'm on a restricted position, so I can't go back to the fire station. But I'm down in our communications and our dispatch center. So I'm a lieutenant over that. We basically give pre-arrival instructions to folks, and then we dispatch and manage the units. And so not being at the fire station level, I miss that camaraderie. I mean, we have that a little bit, but not like you do at the fire station. I miss that, but this is just another avenue or opportunity for me to help out the department. I was 40 when I got hurt, and so I was still fairly young, and I felt like I could still be a contributing member of the department, and was just trying to figure out what that aspect was. But I've been down there in our dispatch center for about a little over 7 years now. How
hard of adjustment was that to know that that part of your career was done, and now you're to be doing something different?
I mean, I was just thankful to be alive, first off. Thank God for that. And then trying to figure out what that role was. And it was difficult, but it was much safer. I didn't have to worry about chief typically showing up at my house to get my wife to take her to the hospital. I mean, stuff does happen, but like someone had once said, I'd been there, done that, got the T-shirt, got the scars to prove it, and now I'm going to have to adjust and just a different aspect of my career now, different chapter, if you will.
Well, did you promote when you were you're a lieutenant now?
Yeah, I promoted down there.
Okay.
In dispatch. I promoted to driver and then lieutenant. And so as an officer, you have you have other options possibly. I was no longer a paramedic. My paramedic had expired when I was off hurt, and they said, we're not going to make you renew it, because I knew I wasn't going to probably ride a frontline ambulance. And they said, unless you wanted to go back to paramedic school. I said, no thanks. I'll just not be a paramedic anymore, because I didn't want to go through that again.
You've already got that T-shirt.
Yeah. I was like, nah. They one of my old captains down there in dispatch likes to say, you spend more time in the back of the ambulance than on the ambulance. I said, I spent just enough. Just enough.
You've got the scars to prove it.
Yeah. So I promoted to lieutenant down there, and I've been in that aspect and that work group for like a little over 7 years now.
It sounds like your family and kind of the support you've had was your rock as far as coping to get through this. We talked earlier about the police and fire, first responder professions of dealing with critical incidents and the need for taking care of mental health. It's gotten way better. I mean, I've been on for over 27 years, and it's night and day of how it's looked at within the department and the amount of resources we have. So not everybody has a Tina.
Yeah.
That can be there for them and fight through with them. And then we've seen from the police profession of people that have gone the road of bad coping mechanisms.
Yeah.
Y'all aren't immune to that either.
No, absolutely. And I was very fortunate that I have a great wife, partner, support system, family, friends, that rallied around us. Not everybody has that. And so, as you mentioned, we can always do better, but we've done a pretty good job, with supporting our members that are going through things, whether it be alcohol, whether it be, you name it. We have the resources available. The days of suck it up buttercup are gone. We're we're trying to do better. Suicides, obviously, PTSD, you name it. We see bad stuff. You guys as well, and so we have a lot of times we have the resources, and people, don't want to ask for help, and we have had situations where they didn't, and it's been bad. But I think we're trying to be much more supportive, open. Proactive, not like the old days, and just trying to be more supportive to our men and women of both departments.
Yeah, you mentioned alcoholism. That's so widespread in the police profession and in the fire as well. And we have that new policy that we enacted. Chief Garcia put it out there, and we've had over a dozen people have gone through rehab.
Yeah.
And we've sent 11 people to Stonegate out there in Azle, and that is a facility that's worked well with us. They actually have a liaison. One of the director of it, Will, his father, I believe, is a captain, Stoy.
Yeah, he's a battalion chief.
Yeah, he's a battalion chief on there, and they do have a soft spot for first responders.
Yeah.
Some of our people that have gone through, there's been some of your folks in there too. So that is.
Yeah, we've sent them there. The IAFF, which is our International Association of Firefighters, has a facility as well that we've sent members to. Mm-hmm. And so we have the resources. We're growing our list of resources, to take care of our brothers and sisters.
We would like to share some with you as well, and take some of yours to add to ours, because we're all in this together.
Yeah. No, Casey and the peer support team have done a really good job establishing that, and as we grow it, it's definitely a need, and it needs to be. Sometimes we don't like to reach out, and so we gotta support each other.
We don't make ourselves a priority.
Yeah.
When it comes to the health, I mean that's
just true. We worry, take care of others, and we still have to be able to take care of ourselves, because we don't always do that.
So when you taking on a new role in the fire department, new role in life, we're overcoming that physically and mentally,
mm-hmm.
and now you're looking at something from a higher view, and you just took a new position in January. Can you talk about that?
Yeah, no. So I've been involved in the Dallas Firefighter Association for a number of years as a member rep, and just as a member, and I decided to raise my hand, put my hand up to run for president at the end of last year, and so I was elected president in January of the Firefighter Association. It's one of those things where, kind of backing up, Tina is also on the Police and Fire Pension Board. I'm the president of the association. These are things that we want to do to help kind of pay it forward. The support that we received, not only financially, emotionally, just across the board when I got hurt and when she went through her situation, is not, it's something we could never pay back. And so whatever we can do to help pay it forward, and I tell the rookies that when I talk to them, we have been through some stuff, some battles. If you get hurt and you have a young wife, we were a little older, not that it makes a difference, but if you have a young wife, the chief has just shown up at your house, said you need to come with us to the hospital. Your husband's been injured. Your world's been flipped. You have young kids. You don't know what day it is. That's the kind of stuff, that unfortunately or fortunately we've been through. We can help these younger members or any member. We've been through some battles, and we can help that, and we have a different perspective on things. We're very fortunate, and so becoming president of the association is part of my way to help pay it forward with Tina and her financial background, helping with the police and fire pension. Since we had those changes in 2017, that's part of her way of paying it forward. So we're trying to help the brothers and sisters on fire and PD however we can, and that's kind of the way this role for me as the president of the association, trying to help our members basically share or give guidance on some of the things we've been through.
So kind of just a natural progression for you,
Yeah, I'm sure Jaime would tell you the same thing. It's a thankless job. You always have somebody who's frustrated or pissed off about something, but it comes with the territory. But I try to base the decisions and my decisions and the e-board's decisions about for the good of the members. And it doesn't matter if it's me leading or whoever it is. It's going to be more about we and the team, and that's kind of the way I look at it.
That says a lot about you as an individual, as somebody who, number one, got into firework to begin with, right? Because you wanted to be a part of something bigger and to help other people. You go through your tragedy and you're down at dispatch now because that's where you can help people.
Yeah.
And then you take on another role where you can help everybody.
Yeah. No, it's and like I had mentioned, there's no way I can pay the brotherhood, the department, the association, any of these folks back, and so whatever way I can try to help pay it forward, help some of these young members. I'm kind of the go-to guy on burns, if you will, the chaplain. Every time we have somebody burned, when we had Ron and Captain Godomsky and Pauline, when they got blown up in that apartment explosion
Howland
at Oak
Hills.
Cliff. Yeah. Man, I remember I was getting my brakes done on my truck, and Ron worked with me down in dispatch. For some reason, he decided he wanted to go back out to the station, drive truck 25, which was a busy truck. And I remember, when I got that call, they texted me and said, "Hey, there's been an explosion. We got members injured, and one of them's Ron." And I remember, man, he was ready to retire. He was ready on the tail end, and I thought, this is not happening. But anyhow, so I went to the hospital and kind of, and talked to both of them, all three of them, and said, "Hey, this sucks. I'm not going to lie to you. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. It sucks. It hurts, but you can get through it and you can come out on the other side. Look at me. They didn't think I was going to make it." Tina said they said I had a 4% chance of living with the burns, the infections, everything that I had to go up against, the nasty pneumonia, the infectious disease team coming in, all that stuff. It just wasn't my time. And so I've been through it and came out on the other side. So I tell these, whatever it is, severe burns, minor burns, I give it to them straight. I said, but it's something you can get through.
Chief Garcia said a line on one of his episodes, and it always resonated with me, and I like to use it any chance I get, and I can't take credit for it. It says that we're planting trees that we'll never see the shade of.
Wow.
And that is really what you're doing for, could be generations of firefighters that have come through Dallas.
Yeah. I mean, you never know what someone's going through. And you never know what your time, whether it's just, touching them with something, you never know what they're going to take from that interaction. And so, just try to do the best I can with, being thankful. First of all, thanking God that it wasn't my time, because things could have ended, could have been much different that day. I wasn't ready to go. I had 2 young kids. I thought, like I said before, this isn't happening. I'm not going to let this happen. I'm going to fight for my life. I'm going to dig, and I'm going to find my way out of this house.
One of the things, Jeff kind of touched on this a little bit about how, guys coming together in the fire service and everything, and he probably wouldn't talk about this, but out of his incident, he talked about how we handle deaths well. But guys like him, I think Eddie Everett was the last one before you he literally had to retire.
Yeah.
But out of Jeff's deal, Dallas Firefighter Association has created a firefighters relief fund. And
yeah,
basically it was because Tina jumped in there. We didn't know what to do with all the donations. We did a lot because you couldn't even get up the steps of the house.
Yeah, no, right? Some of the retirees came out and built a ramp in front of my house. And that's people are, when you get out of the hospital after a situation like that, everyone's like, woohoo, he's going home, woohoo. That's when the real work starts. Poor Tina was like, whoa, we're not ready to have him home yet. It was like, what if I fall? What if she's I got to call 17s for a lift assist or something, she wasn't ready for that. But that was, people were reaching out, donating money, like I said, ATO, the association, we didn't have a way to drive those funds through to be able to give to the families. And so I was the reason we started it, but Mike McLemore, Doug Dickerson, some of the guys in the association started the Local 58 Relief Fund. And so that's an avenue now we have as a 501(c) where we can give money to our members, whatever it is. Canton, you have a tornado, whatever the situation is, we're able to offer help, whether it's financial assistance or whatever the situation may be, to our members now. And that's something we didn't have in place. So that was one thing that came out of it. And Elaine, our chaplain, she had a whole folder of things that, they learned as they went and put together kind of a plan, with the watch, with the meal train and all that stuff. And then so when Ron and Pauline and GDOM got blown up, we had kind of we had a playbook that they were able to build off of and use that we didn't have before. So there were some things like that did come out of my situation that are helping us going forward.
I have a final question for you, and it is totally off script, but I want to give you the opportunity to use this platform to speak to the former firefighters of Dallas, the current, and ones that are thinking about joining this department. What could give them hope that this department is, and this city is the place to be, and there's not a better fire department in the country to work for than Dallas Fire?
Well, there's a lot to unpack there. You said off script for sure. People talk about it being a calling, and that's true. Anybody can walk in the door and do a job. The career of being a first responder is a calling. And so if you feel or you're looking for that missing piece of your life where you want to help people, you want to be a part of something bigger than yourself, be a part of a team. Dallas Fire, we have a lot of great folks on the team. We have a lot of support from our command staff. We have issues here and there, just like any department would. But at the end of the day, it's about taking care of our members and making sure that they have the best tools and resources available. Anytime you go to work for a big city, you're going to deal with the red tape, the challenges of dealing with, I'm dealing with the city attorney's office, you name it. Big cities, it's always a little more difficult. But man, I was late to the party, coming on late in life, but I'm so glad that I'm here now. I wish I didn't have to get burned, but I thank God that I came through on the other side of it, and trying to do my part to help keep this department moving forward as these young members come in. Like I mentioned before, we have enough folks on this department that have been through some, like that farmer's commercial. We've seen a thing or two. We have a lot of resources, a lot of tools, a lot of people who've been through stuff that we can lean on, in times of need, and whatever the case may be. So, Dallas Fire, is strong. We're getting stronger, and I'm just blessed to be a part of it.
Hey brother, hey sister, I'll never give up on you. Hey Mrs., hey mister, I'll see this all the way through. No matter how far the sun and the moon, I'll never give up on you. Down when you're lonely, I'll pull you up. Life leaves you heavy when the going gets tough. I'll be your shoulder, together we'll run up from the bottom, yeah, we'll rise above. Hey brother, hey how far the sun and the moon, I'll never give up on you. Give up on you. Hey brother, hey sister, I'll never give up on you. Hey Mrs., hey mister, I'll see this all the way through. No matter how far, for the gold and the blue, I'll never give up on